Hi, it's episode 90, and as I promised a few days ago on TikTok, I'd be publishing this, which is in itself a continuation of a series that I started a few months ago. So, what's it all about? It's all about beauty, cognitive skills, myth busting, strength building, self healing, well being, sex, and sustainable living. Now, again, this is all from my experience, so do bear in mind that while I'm a teacher, chances are I'm not your teacher. So, I implore you to take from this what you will and give yourself permission to be inspired. But as always, be sure to do your own research on this topic. Now, just a quick interlude before we continue. What you're about to hear is actually part 6 of a series that I started on this topic a few months ago. Now, directly following the first section of this episode, which takes about 33 minutes, you're going to be led into the following episodes that were part of my previous show, Life is Feeling, Counting the Ways, and it's 5 episodes. So, all of this together is going to take you to about 1 hour and 40 minutes, but you don't have to listen to all of it all at once. You are free to pause it and come back to it at any convenient time. It's always going to be here waiting for you. So then, without further ado, on with the show. So, again, today, episode 90 is actually the penultimate episode of a short series that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. It's all about one of the most significant discoveries that I have made for myself that has shown to enrich my own lived experience and one that I want to share with you. So, what is it? It's all about water fasting. Now, water fasting is a little bit extreme, but there's also another form of it that is a little bit more popular. It's called intermittent fasting. But first, let me explain to you what water fasting is all about. It's about you restricting your food in, kind of like an extreme way, whereas you go without consuming anything at all. You just drink water and you are sure to take potassium, magnesium, and salt. These are the 3 things that you have to add to your water. Apart from that, there is absolutely nothing else. No broth, no soup, no, diet sodas or black coffee or anything. Just water with salt, potassium, and magnesium. That's it. Now, the other variety that I'm sure you've heard about as well is intermittent fasting, and that has to do with eating in specific or only within specific time windows. And that's also good. It's easier for some people. And, I do that as well to make this whole thing a little more sustainable for me. And it's also something that you can try if you don't want to try this more extreme and more effective prolonged fasting. Right. Now, water fasting, the way I do it, can range from 1 day to 10 days to the most I've ever done, 21 days. Hello again, my name is iAntonio.media for those of you who don't know me yet, and today on the 9th of May, 1 day before the 10th of May, I'm happy to be officially launching Season 8 of the English Coach podcast, Living the Language, where we add a splash of color and life to your learning experience, and where I invite you to dance with the language. Now, this episode 90 stands under the Life is Feeling category of episodes, and if you're interested in this style of discourse, feel free to check out the archives at www.lifeisfeeling.com. You can also find the links in your podcast player. Just go under info in your player and you will see all the relevant links if you want to read some more or you want to send some feedback in. I rely on your feedback. And if you're listening in YouTube, just check for the links in the description. All right, so now getting straight into it, the first thing that I'm talking about is the vanity aspect. Now, the first thing people think of when they hear about water fasting or intermittent fasting or any kind of fasting for that matter is the weight loss aspect. Now, if you decide to do it, you will lose some weight drastically. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think it's something like zero point 0.6 or zero point 0.7 kilos per day that you can actually shed. But in all honesty, you have to be aware of the fact that when your water fasting ends, about half of that will come back naturally. And if you don't break the fast in the right way, then you get back into the same rhythm of eating too much and you gain the weight quickly again. So you have to be careful how you break that fast, right? Now, the vanity of it, first of all, as I said, it includes the weight loss that is desirable to some people. There is also an increase in strength that I've experienced. Remember, this is from my experience, yes? And the last water fast that I did, now believe it or not, I went for 10 days with only water, and as I said, magnesium, potassium, and salt. And since I make notes, I've been doing strength training now for quite a while, and I work with, a little notepad in my iPhone, and I take notes of my progress, how much weights I lift, my repetitions, and the type of exercises that I do on particular days. And during this 10-day water fast that I did, I actually got 20% stronger on the 7th day. That is lifting 20% more weights on the 7th day of my water fast, as in no food in my stomach, still going to the gym, and I was stronger. Now you might ask, how is that possible? The thing is with fasting, when you do water fast, your growth hormone increases, and I'm going to get into a little more detail on that a little bit later, but your growth hormone increases sometimes over 1,000%, and that protects your muscles. All right, now we're still on the vanity thing. For most of the men out there, some women as well, you get a strength increase, and that definitely comes from the increased growth hormone that you get. Now, in terms of your looks, your skin gets clearer, your eyes get clearer, your hair gets thicker, and your nails, all these things look much more healthy after, a nice little water fast. It doesn't have to be 21 days, as I said before, but it can be a shorter one, 3 days or 10 days. Now, another advantage, again, from my experience, is your cognition. Now, as a result of, let's say, not eating, your liver is forced to create another form of energy for the brain. Well, the source is called ketones. And ketones are actually made from fat, because if you're not ingesting anything, then your body is forced to find other sources of energy that you burn, and that's the fat that you're burning off. Now, the liver, because there's no more glucose in the body, and even though the brain prefers to use glucose as an energy source, it is now forced to use ketones. And ketones are very effective because, your brain actually, well, as I said, forced to use that, but as a side effect, you have increased focus, and there is even a slight feeling of high. Now, this feeling is so good. Yes, it's a feeling of well-being. You find yourself suddenly in some kind of a Zen state. Better concentration, better focus, almost meditative and trance-like. You don't want to stop. Because, again, speaking from my experience, the first time I did a fast that ended up being 21 days, my plan was to do something like 10 days or maybe even 7. And because it felt so good after the 3rd day, I didn't want to stop. Now, moving on, I'm going to go through this really fast because I'm actually cooking right now. I'm cooking bone broth and broccoli soup with pumpkin and a little potato. But I want to talk to you about the myths. Now, most people, they have a very emotional response to the idea of, depriving themselves of food. But, there's a kind of a starvation mode that is feared by a lot of people. And, fasting is not starvation. It is something that you're controlling. You're doing it. You're putting your body through that regenerative process. And it's not something that is involuntary, such as starvation. So it's not true. You're not starving when you go through a fast. Now, moving away from that idea of a starvation mode, which is not true. Now, before I started fasting a few months ago, I was 1.8 meters tall and 85 kilograms. Now, maybe, you can compare that to your own weight and height to see that that is not really overweight, right? 1.8 meters, 84 kilograms. I was able, with the little fat that I had in my body, to live comfortably, happily for 3 weeks without food. So now you think about it. Again, 1.8 meters, 85 kilograms, and I could go 3 weeks without food. Now, coming back to that idea of what happens with your growth hormone. After 2 days of fasting, your growth hormone increases by 200%. After 3 days, by 300%. And if you go to 7 days, your growth hormone goes up to 1,250%. Now, why is that significant? Many people are afraid of the idea of losing muscle mass. Fact is, that's not going to happen. When you're fasting, your body is triggered into protecting your muscle mass. It is forced to find other sources of energy, which is going to be your fat reserves and the sugar that you have in your body. Now, if you think of how we have developed as human beings, how we've evolved over the ages, the state at which we are, let's say, hungry was the normal state. And just think of it, reasonably. If you are hungry, that means you need your muscles to find food and to hunt, probably. It doesn't make sense for your body, once you get a little bit hungry, to start eating its own muscle. That doesn't happen. And that is why so much growth hormone is produced, to protect the muscle that you have. Now, I did a little tweaking with that thing because I wasn't just fasting and taking it slow when I did the 10-day fast or even the 21-day fast, but the 10-day fast in particular, I did that twice or 3 times since I started fasting. And I said to myself that I'm going to continue going to the gym, as in doing strength training while I'm fasting. And that kind of, of course, you're going to 70% intensity or so. You're not doing so much cardio. You're trying to keep your heart rate below a certain level, not the maxing that you usually do. Everything about 70%. And I kid you not, even though I said to myself, I'm going to keep it to 70%, right? On day 7, as I said, I was 20% stronger. And when I tell people that, they just laugh and they don't usually believe. But, as I said, I take notes of everything. I know exactly what my failure mark was when I did, let's say, chest last week. I know that it was X kilograms and, X amount of reps and so on. But while I was fasting on day 7, I was actually stronger. And I think it had to do with the fact that my growth hormone was up, right? So it's a myth that you're going to lose muscle mass. All you have to do is, what I did, because I was training and not just, cooling out, I also took amino acids. And these were amino acids without sugar. Because once you take sugar, then you break your fast and you don't want to do that. So before training, I think it was like an hour to 2 hours before, I was sure to take some amino acids before I started working out, and that helped to protect my muscle and also probably gain strength while I trained, while I was fasting. Now, coming back to these myths again, we tend to associate feeding with self-care and self-love and sharing and a sense of community. A friend of mine even said the other day that the act of cooking to her was or is an erotic experience. And, it's kind of true. It's something we do in community. This is how we share and care for the ones we like or love. And because the act of feeding and eating and the whole ceremony involved has to do with these strong bonding rituals, we respond in a very allergic way to anything that looks like deprivation from food. And, that's why hunger strikes work so well. But the fact is, a fasted state is a more natural state than a fed state. And this is when your body actually heals itself. And we shouldn't be so afraid of it, because there's so many wonderful things that happen when you don't have any, well, you always have a little sugar, I think, in your blood. But when you reduce the sugar that's in your blood, which is the key thing you want to reduce from sugar, processed sugar, fruit sugar, from carbs and so on. Once you reduce that in your bloodstream, that is when you start to burn fat, and that is when you go into all of these healthy processes that are going to improve your life, right? So fasting is definitely an option that you can try. And remember, I'm just talking from my experience. If you're interested in finding out what my experiences were in a little more detail, feel free to write. And before we move on, we're moving on to the more scientific health benefits. But remember, if you have any questions, you can always head on over to the podcast page. The link is in your info section of your podcast player or on YouTube on the description. And if you feel like, you can also just enter it, www.iAntonio.media.com, and head on over to podcasts, right? Okay, so moving on to the more scientific benefits. There is a process called autophagy, and autophagy is essentially self-healing and self-cleansing. This is one major benefit that you'll get from fasting. I think it starts after like day 3. And what actually happens? Your body, because you don't have food or new food in your body, only stores, your body seeks to use up those stores of food, which is, usually in the form of fat, and also tries to find energy from cells in the body that were poorly replicated, and also viruses and any waste substance that you have in the body. Your body consumes it for energy. And that in itself is a very strongly healing process that helps to reduce inflammation. And inflammation in the body is a source of many illnesses. Any illness that you hear with the ending or the suffix itis has to do with some form of inflammation, and fasting reduces that significantly. So again, self-healing and self-cleansing. Now, earlier I also mentioned that there was a sense of well-being that I got. It's the reason why my 10-day planned fast turned out to be 21, because I felt so good. There is a feeling of well-being. After day 3, the first 3 days are difficult if you're doing a long fast, right? But after day 3, you start feeling almost immortal. You feel as if you get your energy from the sun. Now, this feeling of freedom it's just special, it's something that I can't really describe. You have to try it out for yourself. It has to do with the fact that you feel greater energy. You actually have more energy because your body is burning fat, which is a good energy source, which your body uses, well, I would say in this context, just as a method of storing for the future. But if your body is not in storage mode, right? Your body is in storage mode once there's food in your stomach and there's insulin in your blood. So there's no food, so your body is not in storage mode anymore. So it's forced to burn fat and produce all these growth hormones and so on to protect your muscle. The well-being or the quality of life that I told you about, right? You feel liberated from expenses. Can you imagine how much money I saved for 21 days not eating anything? I saved a lot, right? I'm just going to leave it at that. You have a sense of achievement and autonomy or sovereignty over your own body and your own bodily processes. You feel as if you can take charge of how your body works and how your body develops. And that gives you it's a very satisfying feeling that, as I said, I can't really explain it. You have to just experience it for yourself. Another thing that has to do with well-being is that ever since I started fasting, I actually like sauerkraut, which is something that I use to break my fasting. Now, sauerkraut is fermented cabbage, which is also good for your stomach and, the good bacteria that lives in your stomach. It's part of the fast breaking routine, which is something that I go into with more detail and will even further for anybody who asks. But I have my own way of breaking a fast, and sauerkraut is always a part of it. Now I like it. It tastes fantastic. And why does that happen? Your taste sensation gets even better. It's much more pronounced, right? You taste everything when you break your fast and long after, because I haven't fasted in a few months. I'll probably do it again in 1 or 2, but my sense of taste has improved. I enjoy healthy food and vegetables much more than I did before. Right now, what I'm cooking, if you asked me a year ago, I would never cook anything vegetarian. And right now I'm cooking vegetarian. As I said, in the kitchen, I'm doing a nice soup, and it's just great. It tastes fantastic. And this new health consciousness, this new sense of satisfaction is, something that keeps me motivated. And I'm very happy that I started. I really want to share that with you, and that is what all of this is about. Now, I also said I'm going to talk about sex. Now, I'm being as authentic as I can, and I'm just gonna talk to you with plain language, right? You have more energy when you fast, during the fast. Now, I can't really say much about what happened during the fasting itself as it relates to sex, yeah, because, sometimes we take a break, but there is more energy that you have as a result of that. And as you get older as well, man to man, sometimes when you get older, sometimes you find a little escapade, it's more of a functions check than anything else. Well, of course, you do it to share and, to express your love to someone. But, sometimes it's like a functions check, on the back burner. You're checking to see if everything works and if you still got it. But, I'm telling you this, the fasting thing is fantastic, having to do with your energy and your performance, and also your stress level, which has its impact on, how you express that part of your life. You sleep better and your stress goes down. And that in itself speaks volumes, right? Now, again, you have a better sense of well-being. You feel healthier, you feel more beautiful. And, shortly put, you have much more to share. Now, the last thing that I promised to talk to you about was the idea of sustainable living. Sustainable living is an ideal that we aspire to, right? We reflect on how we can live a better life, not just for us, not just for ourselves and our family, but for the whole community and also within the whole ecological system within which we find ourselves. Now, I always try to make sure that I mention ecology with sustainability, because the original meaning of sustainability had to do with ecology. And it's also how we live, not only with ourselves and our family and our, let's say, our society, but also with the environment, the ecology within which we have to live, with all the other living things, plants and animals that share this space with us. Now, the overconsumption, right, is the next thing I want to talk to you about. In and of itself, water fasting causes you to eat less, if only for a period. And that's where I started to think a little bit more about the sustainability thing, and a lot of it has to do with overconsumption. We just eat too much, whether it just be eating or just consuming resources, right? And this sense of well-being that I get from fasting, it gives me a sense of power over what I can choose to consume and when or not. So that in itself is a very powerful motivator. Now, the intermittent fasting is also an option, and that is more sustainable in the long term. You don't have to do these extreme, as I said, 3 days, 10 days, 21 days, but you can eat in specific time windows. Most of you hear about that. I think it's 16/8, where you don't eat within a 16-hour period, but you only eat within an 8-hour period, which might come down to 2 meals, right? Not 3. You don't need breakfast. And, that's more sustainable over the long term. There are other aspects having to do with sustainable living because, what I learned as well is that we have to, as a people, as a society, as a world, we have to start re-examining our values. We have to start thinking about, reflect on the status that is gained from opulent displays of overconsumption. It's all around us. What do you get from that? Is it necessary? Or would it be more satisfying to take charge of these drives, right? These things that drive our sense of status within society, right? Are we going to give these things even more power and cause us to consume what we don't have or what is not good for us? Now, our whole capitalistic system is built on overconsumption. Right? So when I fast, again, as I said, I have a sense of power. I have a sense of agency. I have a sense that I'm doing something good for the world. And that is actually what is happening. I'm eating less. And it's good for me. Now, as I said before, it's about re-examining our values and asking ourselves the question sometimes, do we really need to eat 6 meals a day? Right? Do we need that? No, we don't. Because what actually happens when you eat 6 meals a day is that your body always is fed and is always producing insulin. And once there is a high amount of insulin in the body, then you are in storage mode. You're not in fat burning mode. So what your body is doing, instead of burning fat, it's making more. And what you want to do is eat less and, drop that insulin so your body burns the fat and doesn't store it. Again, this is not for everybody. There's some people who like that kind of existence. There's some people who just love to eat. You can, that's another thing with fasting. You can eat whatever the hell you want to eat, especially with intermittent fasting. You can eat whatever you want, but within a specific time window. It doesn't stop you from doing what you want. And I am not telling anyone that they should do this, but I am sharing with you the benefits that I have found for myself. And as I said, again, it's not just the sense of well-being. It's not just the better sex. It's not just the quality of life. It's not just the self-healing and self-cleansing. It's not just busting myths that have been, lying to us for ages. It's not just the increased cognition, focus, and concentration. And it's not just the beauty and strength increases that I've known, but the sustainable living. That is something that, we have to move closer to that as we go forward. This is one way that you can make a small win towards sustainable living. Now, I said this in a little playful way before, where I said, of course, if you're eating less for a period of time, you are saving money, right? You're saving a lot on what you would have spent on food. 21 days, no food, only water, that's a lot of savings. And you know what? Again, a little bit more playful, but I'm just going to say this to you. Tax savings, right? Now, this is something that you are deriving a benefit from immediately, and it's tax-free. Have you ever heard that before? You actually get something and there's no tax on it. And it's very simple, right? To me, it's one of the biggest motivators, especially right now, where it seems that there is a whole global movement to re-examine our values and all these things within society that have kept us enslaved. And to what end, right? To me, it's the absolute best revenge, right? Because I'm consuming less, which is good for the environment. I am spending less, which does not feed our capitalistic paradigm and I'm not paying any taxes on it and I'm deriving a benefit. So why not, just resign from the overconsumption? And to me, as I said, it is the biggest motivator. Well, maybe the second biggest. But when I think about that, to me, that's just the best revenge. Yeah. To me, that's the best revenge. And they also say the best revenge is looking good. Right. And if you fast and your hair and your beauty and your strength and everything is improving, there is no other way to describe it. All right, so that was it. I think we are at about 30 minutes now. And as I said, if you want to learn more about whether it be prolonged fasting, yes, I have to differentiate the two: prolonged fasting, 3 days, 10 days, 21 days, you can ask. I also implore you to do your own research. I'm telling you what worked for me. If you're interested in knowing what worked for me, you can ask me and I will tell you. And I also refer you to some of the science that has informed the decision and the methodology that, I've been following now for about 1.5 years, and it works, right? But I'm not just gonna put my stuff out there. I don't have answers to anything. All this ranting that I did before, especially about, the sustainable living and, the savings you can make. All of this is just from my point of view. I can offer these things to you, and then you have to do your own research to decide what are the answers that would suit you. All right? So that was it. As I said, the penultimate episode, episode 90. It was a great pleasure for me to be doing this again. I'm coming back into my power of podcasting. And, I'm working again, as I said, a lot on TikTok, just to help to promote my show. So anywhere you see it, I would love to have some feedback from you. If you see it on TikTok, leave a comment, and you can share it, even if you want to share it to a friend and say, listen to this idiot, I don't really care. I want you to just, write what you think, give me some feedback so I can continue on this train of thought, make my own corrections, include the experiences of others. You can influence the decision, or let's say you can influence the decisions I make, and you can influence the direction that this show takes with your feedback. So, you can say what you like, what you didn't like, and all that stuff. Do it anywhere. Do it on YouTube, do it on TikTok, do it in your podcast player, anywhere you can send some kind of response. I'd be very grateful for it. And if you want, you can also mention your name, and I'd be happy as well to make mention of you. So then, we've come to the end, and as I always say, with a small win is always a good way to begin. I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and bye for now. Life is Feeling Counting the Ways, episode 30, on this December day of 2023. Hello, my name is iAntonio.media, and the phrase for the day is embodied cognition. Now, that little phrase I learned on one of my favorite podcasts recently, and today it's all about that and busting some myths that have to do with fasting. All right? Now, I hope you enjoy this episode. I'm just doing this one free, so you might feel the sense of freedom coming from my voice right now. But what you're about to hear is well worth it. All right. Now, as some of you might know, I did a 3-week fasting recently. That is long over. And here I am. I live to speak of it. And I'm happy to say that it went well. I promised to go into, some of how I felt about it while I was fasting. And in this episode, towards the end, we'll go a little bit into that. But today, first of all, I'm going to be talking to you about one big myth that has a lot to do with water fasting. And, it's been bandied around quite a lot by all sorts of people. I think mostly from people who don't have the balls to do water fasting. And, they have to tell themselves all sorts of rubbish. Now, The idea of embodied cognition, which is just a phrase that I like, is basically about an intelligence that comes from the body and not necessarily from the brain. It's the body deciding for itself, mostly in movements, in skills, sometimes in dancing or fighting or sports. Sometimes, our body just remembers how to do things without us having to think about them. And that is the idea of embodied cognition. Now, a little bit later, you're gonna find out what that has to do with fasting. But first of all, I'm gonna go straight to this myth that I have to just bust this myth, right? So, I've done this 21-day fasting, and the last time I did it in a classic way. Whereas, I just stopped eating, and the only thing I was consuming was water. Truth be told, I shouldn't say only water because that's not entirely true. Water in itself has lots of minerals inside. However, in this case, or it stands to reason, in this case, I was having water and minerals. And what are these minerals? They were basically the electrolytes, these electrolytes that you need to live, and the electrolytes that will keep you alive during fasting, or they'll help to keep you alive. And these are magnesium, sea salt, and potassium, or kalium in German. Now, again, you have to take these when you're doing a water fast. If you do not, you will die. And I actually made the mistake one day of not taking enough salt, went out for a walk, feeling all powerful as we do when we're doing a water fasting. And after day 4, you feel as if you're walking on clouds, really. I kid you not. And I went out that day forgetting to take my salt, which should be about 1.5 teaspoons a day. You can spread it over the day if you want, but you should ingest at least that. I forgot. Some strange things started happening. Like, I started, taking missteps, and I was going a little slower than normal, very careful with my steps as if I'm walking on ice kind of thing. And it was my friend who noticed. I didn't really notice so much of myself until I started paying attention to it. I was much slower in walking through the park. And, I was feeling a little bit less energetic than I usually do when I'm doing a water fast. And, that is usually very energetic. So it was strange. And the reason for that was because I didn't take enough salt. Now, another tip that I want to give you from, I did promise to keep these tips for later, so I'm going to keep them for later. Right now, it's all about breaking that myth. Now, we're going to jump out of that 21-day fast and jump into a new one that I did quite recently. And that was it ended about a month ago, and it was a 6-day fast. Water fast again, only potassium and magnesium and salt. And what I did this time, what made this one different, was I wanted to make sure that I didn't lose any muscle strength or lean muscle volume during this water fast. So I decided to continue taking my creatine, which, is my natural supplement that I use to help me with working out. I think everybody who does strength training uses creatine. And it's a natural substance, as I said, occurs naturally in meat. So I continued taking that, and I decided to also include essential amino acids into my water fasting regime. So how exactly did I do that? I got up in the morning, drank some water, then I took my magnesium after, I was awake, started my day. At some point I took my sea salt, which was, I just took all the salt at one time, so 1.5 teaspoons, or, you can do 1 teaspoon first, drink it down with some water, and then continue with your day. Later on in the day, you can take the other 1/2 teaspoon. You should be taking at least 1.5 teaspoons per day. Importantly, also with potassium, you take it also not when you just woke up or mixing it with the magnesium, but just taking it by itself with some water, and you should be fine. And that was it. Throughout the entire day, I drank about 2 liters of water. Right? When you're fasting, you're going to be constantly drinking water, and that is very important. what I also did, as I said, I wanted to increase or to maintain my muscle mass. Not really to increase it, but just to maintain it. So I decided to take the normal amount of, or the recommended amount of essential amino acids, which was, I think, is about 2 tablespoons of the brand that I'm using. Yeah, about 2 tablespoons, or nay, yeah, 1.5 tablespoons. And I had that about an hour before I went to training. Yes, I went to training during my water fast. So after getting that in, I went to training normally. I avoided extreme cardiovascular work. So I didn't do the treadmill at all. Well, no, actually, yes, I did do the treadmill as well. I did do the treadmill, but I tried to keep my heart rate below 140. So it was light work, right? Below 140 beats per minute, and that is fine. That was light work. And that's the only thing I did. I think I did it 15 minutes at the end of each workout. Now, remember, I am at the gym just on water and my electrolytes and a little bit of essential amino acids before, and my workout was fine. And the only thing I changed really was the fact that I was a little less intense with the cardio that usually follows up my workout. Now, another thing that I did after the workout, I also took half of the recommended portion of essential amino acids, and then continued with my water. No extra protein, no anything. Now, the reason for that is because during a water fast, your body produces 500% more growth hormone. And you might ask yourself the question, why? Why does it produce 500% growth hormone? And the answer is coming soon. But another thing that happens is that, you produce some adrenaline. There's some ketones that are surging through your bloodstream, and that gives you a nice sense of high. But, coupled with this 500% increase in growth hormone and adrenaline, the question was, why do you need that? And it's a perfectly reasonable and, common sense answer when you really think about it. Now, what your body is doing, it is trying to protect the muscle mass, the lean muscle mass that you need. This 500% increase in human growth hormone will also prevent you from losing your lean muscle mass. And that is the myth. A lot of people out there, as I said, they do not have the balls, or whatever you want to say. I don't know, whatever is politically correct these days to say. If you don't have the gumption to do a water fasting, right? You might hear things like, oh, you're going to lose all your muscle mass and you're going to faint and all of that rubbish. Yeah, it's not true. And that is the reason why I did this particular fasting for myself. Because I said, I'm going to go and train just like normal and see what happens. And I kid you not, with this 500% increase in human growth hormone, coupled with my normal training that I did, weights training that is, I turned my aerobics down a little bit to maintain a heartbeat, a maximum heart rate of 140 beats per minute. But I continued taking also my creatine, which is like 1 teaspoon a day or something like that. And you know what happened on the 5th day and on the 6th? My strength gains had gone up by 20%. And how do I know this? I document all my work at the gym. I go to the gym and, I check if I have a chest day, then I check the notes for chest. What did I do last week? What were the exercises? How much did I push? What was the kilo? What was the weight that I pushed to failure? And what is it that I could manage? And I kid you not, on day 5 and on day 6, when I did back and chest, I was pushing 20% more than I did when I was eating normally, right? Now, just let that sink in for a while, right? No food in my belly, no food at all, right? All of that energy is coming from ketones and fat, and even ketones are fat-based,
right? I think it's produced in the liver from fat. So what I'm actually doing and what that actually means is that I'm giving my muscles, yes, my lean muscle mass, a gift of 500% growth hormone. They're getting some adrenaline, they're getting some ketones, so all of us feel good. And I'm training, I'm continuing with the creatine, and I actually got 20% stronger in my chest and in my back exercises. So all this rubbish you're hearing out there, oh, you shouldn't fast, oh, you're going to lose your muscle. That is all rubbish, people. And what it means is that all of us can do it. So if you decide that you have the balls or the gumption to take on water fasting, get over the first 3 days of pain, and then get into the Zen zone. The Zen zone, I like to call it, because, in that space, you don't feel any pain, you don't feel any hunger pain, you just feel good, and there's a strong sense of well-being. Once you get into that zone and you go to the gym just like normal and do your normal thing, you don't have to go. If you normally go to the gym and stay there for 1.5 hours, you can just stay there for one, because your training is going to be more effective anyway, because the only source of energy for the same work that you had been doing and more is gonna be belly fat, right? So I would recommend that to anyone who wants to try it. I have proved it to myself, for myself, right? So now I know that, I can just stop eating, right? If I feel as if I have a little too much fat, then just stop eating. It's that simple. Just stop eating and keep moving, then you must lose weight. It's very simple, right? It's very simple. And all that rubbish you're hearing out there from people, right? They are either being promoted by some food industry or whatever. Think about it, right? If people were to stop eating, you know how much money I save when I stop eat? It's unbelievable. And these days, it is normal for me not to eat breakfast and not to eat lunch during weekdays. I don't eat breakfast and lunch. I just eat dinner. I eat a big dinner, and that is all I need. Now, that is so much savings. And, there are lots of interests who don't want you to stop eating. They just want you to continue yam and get fat and spend money, right? So this whole fasting thing that I am doing is not just about the health benefits. It's not just about losing my belly fat. It's also about proving to myself that I can do without certain things. So, this whole idea of reducing consumption is very, very, very strongly political, And, that's the reason why, for example, hunger strikes work so well, because it elicits such a strong, the idea of not eating elicits such a strong emotional response. And that is why hunger strikes work, right? But I'm here to tell you that it's not really that dramatic, right? You can stop eating, and on the 5th and the 6th day, you go to the gym and you're pushing 20% more than you did before. As I said, again, let that sink in. And that is what I wanted to share with you today. I think I'm going to talk about that some more again later on, because, I'm going to be doing this. I think I'm going to be including this into my whole fitness regime, maybe every 2 months or maybe every 3 months. I'm just going to do a short 7-day fast. And while I'm doing that, I'm just going to continue going to the gym like normal, and it's not going to stop me from doing anything at all, right? Now, as I promised, I wanted to, let you know some of the things. Now, we're going back to that first fast that I did, the long one, 21 days, where I wasn't going to the gym at all. I was just not eating anything. Water and my electrolytes, right? Now, what I wanted to emphasize is that you have to make sure that you're taking your salt. Otherwise, you will feel as if you're going to die at some point, right? So that was the first tip. You have to remember that. Another thing I wanted to tell you was that potassium, you have to take potassium as well. I do not suggest taking it in the morning together with your magnesium. Otherwise, you're going to get some kind of stomach upset. So that was it basically, right? For now, if there's anything else that I remember, I'll be sure to mention it in the next episode of the fasting series. But again, just a quick repetition of what I said. Take your magnesium and your potassium separately. Don't mix them, right? Because, you might get some kind of stomach ache, when all of these things hit your stomach at the same time, right? So that was basically it. And, I'm feeling really happy in the festive season because, no, I'm not eating so much, but I'm definitely going to do another fast at the end, maybe in January or so. I'll do another one. And as I did the last time, I will continue training and I will let you know how that works out. All right, so that was it for Life is Feeling, Counting the Ways for this day, episode 30 in December 2023. And I want to, take this opportunity to wish for all of you and yours the very best for the new year coming up. And, try it. The reason why I'm doing this is because I'm sharing it. And, the fasting thing, there's much more to it than just losing weight and maintaining strength and feeling healthy. But there's also an aspect to it that has to do with self-discipline, proving things to oneself, and also noticing that all this consumption that we feel compelled to do, especially at times like this, we do not have to do it. All right? And there is nothing to lose, but only to gain. Like the 20% stronger that I got during a water fast on day 5 of not eating anything, right? And it's not showing off. I'm just very happy to be able to share this with you because a lot of people out there don't realize that, they don't realize the volume and the gravity of the rubbish that they've been fed, right? Fed food-wise and also fed in terms of information, right? Your body usually has enough energy inside it to survive for days, right? Even to do high-ish intensity sport in the form of strength training. All right, so that was it. No more rambling today. iAntonio Paddison again for Life is Feeling, Counting the Ways. Wishing you all the best and bye for now.
Life is Feeling, Counting the Ways is a self-sponsored independent podcast, essentially an art project that appreciates the values of humanness, authenticity, and perfect imperfection. It invites you to converse with ideas and explores feeling from the emotional, the physical, or experiential points of view in terms of our capacity for empathy and what we do with it. Life is Feeling, Counting the Ways invites listeners to take a moment to be awake to the world, to explore diverse values and attitudes and experiences that help us to think more critically and more inclusively, and help us to make better sense of the world through different lenses. As I do in my photography, another creative preoccupation of mine, here is where I shoot for feeling. That's what the humanness is all about. And the more this podcasting genre becomes ingested by AI, ads-driven paradigms, and pretentiousness, the more human this show is likely to become. So then, without further ado, on with the show. iAntonio Paddison again, and I am here today for another little documentation of my fasting journey, as I promised. Now, the focus of these little interludes, so to speak, should be on the way I feel during this fasting. I have made it to day 5, and I'm very proud of myself. I actually started a new job today, and I was worried at first what would happen when I, go to work normally, 9 to 5 for a new job, lots of stress, lots of moving around,
learning new tasks and all of that. And, I'm happy to say that it went really well. I was feeling energetic. I didn't feel sleepy at all. Well, actually, at one point I did feel sleepy, but not such that I, was dying or anything like that. Just a little bit. And it was sometime during the day when I was waiting, at the time, maybe I think about half an hour for someone. And I just felt a little sleepy. But all in all, my energy levels were top. My clarities and, clarity of thought and, the quickness of my mind and memory and so on were in top form, I must say. And I'm really surprising myself. I mean, it's just day 5 and there are officially 15 to go, but it's going well. Now, a lot of people they ask me sometimes, why don't you eat? I say, well, I'm on a fast. What do you eat? I'm just drinking water and nothing else with minerals. And they're very surprised. And then they ask me immediately if I'm doing it for weight loss. And, I'm just going to say this straight. I'm not doing it for the weight loss. As I said before, I go to the gym quite regularly. I think I have, good muscle mass. Yes, there will be a weight loss benefit, but that is not the real reason why I'm doing it, not the only reason. And I always, cheekily say to people that the reason why I'm doing fasting or water fasting is not only for vanity, but truth be told, that's the distant second of the list of reasons why I'm doing this. I'll just run through some of them again quickly. It is for the self-healing properties, the autophagy, as I've said before, which is, just a process by which the body starts, digesting bad parts of itself, including some cells that have been made in a wrong way and are at a risk of becoming probably cancer cells. It's a process by which your body actually creates new stem cells, right, for the brain and for different parts of the body. And there are lots of healing properties that I think I'm going to mention them also in my newsletter. I'll go into more detail, written detail. So if you're interested in, getting an idea of what these things are, as well as more links and more literature on that topic, you can sign up for the private listeners group. Another thing that's a little bit interesting, to me, it's a lot interesting, is the thought that, coming back to this weight loss idea, I've done fasting before, and I think at the time I lost 12 kilos in 10 days. And it is normal, perfectly normal, for half of that weight to come back, even if you follow the right protocols, as in breaking the fast slowly and not jumping back into your old ways, like pigging out on the second day of breaking the fast or something like that. It's normal for your weight to go back. So, I've lost up until now, I think on day 5, at the beginning I was 87 kilos and now I'm actually at 83, right? So I've lost 4. Yeah. And that's quite impressive. But, I'm not watching that so much. By the end of 20 days, probably I'll get down to 75 kilos. And, that's also perfectly fine because, I am not losing my muscle mass, which I'm proud enough. But, I expect half of that to come back. But, as I said, I'm not doing it for that. It's just mostly for the health benefits. Another insight that crossed my mind recently was, sometimes when we think of food, we see food as being the reward, right? And in a fasting state, you realize that paradoxically, the reward to me right now is in not eating, right? And, that thought was just, insightful, profound. And when you decide, or if you decide that you want to do this, then, you could also see it as that, see the process as being a reward to yourself because you are actually healing your body.
Another thing that I will admit, though, since we're talking about feelings, I do not have physical hunger. But one thing that you will have to contend with is the urge to eat when you're surrounded by people who have food with them. I kid you not. The smells intensify, right? Sometimes you dream of eating. And today at work, for example, I think I went into the lunchroom and there were people having a lovely quiche. I'm not into quiche at all, but I remember seeing one of my new colleagues having quiche and it looked totally delicious, even though I don't usually like quiche. And there was another lady there having something, I think it was a chili con carne, and I just was, dreaming of diving in with her into that chili con carne. And the interesting thing as well is that the working space that I'm in now, there's a wonderful coffee machine. There's a fridge full of stuff, well, right now from other people. There's snacks and oh my God. And when I looked at it, I was like, there was Skittles in there, M&Ms, Snickers, and a whole bunch of other sweet stuff, nuts and, raisins. I like raisins and, what else was there? I don't even remember what was there, but chocolate, a huge variety of chocolate. And when I looked at it, I really kind of wanted it, but it wasn't a physical pain as is usually associated with hunger and what you usually feel on the first 3 days. I think the best thing for me to do is to tell all of them that I'm doing a water fast until the end of the month, and they will also help me to stick to that plan. I'm also kind of like forming a reputation right now there, and I can't afford, on the first few days, looking like someone who breaks his commitment. So I'm gonna stick to it. I'm gonna stick to this very long fast until the 31st of August, and I will keep you up to date. All right, so that was it for the little update today, and I'm looking forward to a new workday tomorrow. Hello, it's iAntonio.media again, coming to you for an extra special episode of Life is Feeling Counting the Ways, where I'll be documenting my water fasting journey just for you. I'm sure that you might be interested a little bit in it, unless you've done it before, but I'll be going into how I feel while I'm doing this. Now, I'm just gonna clarify what exactly a water fasting is, just, to make sure we're on the same page. A water fasting to me, and to a lot of people, means that you only drink water. You do not ingest anything else. No proteins, no carbohydrates, no fats, no sugar, first and foremost. The reason why we do this is for various health reasons, which include, fat loss. And, I'm not really somebody who is struggling with fat right now. As a matter of fact, I go to the gym quite regularly and, I must say I'm quite fit. But I want to kind of trim up a little bit because, it's not really in my best interest and I don't really want to just bulk up like that. It's also an experiment and a challenge to my own body to see if I can take charge of my own physique. And, that in itself is also quite motivating, quite satisfying. Another reason why people do it, they do it for health reasons, which are, for example, autophagy, which is a process of self-healing that is actually initiated through water fasting. Self-healing. I'll go into more detail where that is concerned later on. There are some other benefits, for example, ketones, a new form of energy that your body has to create to fuel the brain. Now, that is particularly interesting because, we as human beings, we can actually create within our cells, within our bodies, a new source of energy for the brain, which is used to working with glucose. And this new source of energy is fat-based. It changes your state of mind. I remember that
from the last time I did fasting. Now, there are some other, self repairing mechanisms that are called into play. There's also a boost of human growth hormone, about 500%. There's an increase in testosterone. And there are tons of things that I'm going to mention to you later on. But there are lots of reasons for doing water fasting. It's even said that you can generate new brain cells. And I don't feel to be at a loss of brain cells right now, but we're all losing all the time. And this is one process that is reputed to do that. You even create new stem cells while you're fasting. So there are many reasons, not just reasons of vanity, for doing it. So as I said, this involves water. So when you're drinking your water, you have to make sure that your water is taken with minerals. You have to also ingest daily minerals, which starts out with normal sea salt, potassium, and magnesium. These are the first ones. You have to make sure that you get at least your daily requirement of that. As a matter of fact, I would suggest taking a little bit more. Do not take my advice. If you're going to be doing water fasting, please get professional help. I know what worked for me. And if you're going to do this, I'm not telling you what dosages you should do, but just make sure that you take potassium, magnesium, and sea salt. These are electrolytes. You need that for the body. Another thing you need is B vitamins, B complex. That is also something I have. It's in my little box of my little kit of things that I need. I'll also be taking supplements of zinc, which should also help with the, the testosterone boost or whatever, something that was promised. And, I don't even know if that's so important, but, I just don't want to be depleted in any way. Another thing that I'm taking is fish oils, right? Fish oils, I'm sure probably it has a tip of protein in it, but yeah, I don't know. Someone recommended that I do it somewhere, and I'm also taking those supplements. Water fasting per day, I think I'm drinking about 5 liters of water, and that's about it. Anyway, I'm going to get into more details of how it's done. And if you're interested, you can always head on over to the website to see my formula, what I used. And eventually I'm going to post all the videos having to do with water fasting that helped me to make my plan. Now, I started with this water fasting with 2 days before of eating purely vegetarian. 1 day before I had only broccoli. And I think that's good for the system. It helps to prepare the system for this kind of thing. And I don't know if I really want to have meat in my system, for a 20-day water fast, right? So that was the preparation. And then I just went straight into it, right? I have this huge water bottle here. I'm going to also post a photo of that perhaps. Just head on over to Life is Feeling Counting the Ways and you'll be able to see it, right? Or you can follow lifeisfeeling.com. That will take you to both my shows. What you want to look for is the episodes under Life is Feeling Counting the Ways. If you want to go straight to Spotify, you can just head on over to lifeisfeeling.de. But on the website, on the main website for the episode or for the series, there is where I'm going to be publishing all the links and all the photos and all these other little extras that you might need if you decide that you want to try water fasting. Now, in terms of how I'm feeling, right now I'm feeling very energetic. I'm feeling a little bit of hunger, but, there's a distinction to be made between psychological hunger and physical hunger. In terms of the physical hunger, I'm not feeling much. And as soon as I do, then I just drink some water and it goes away immediately. This is the second day, as I might have said earlier. Yes. And the worst day of physical hunger or psychological hunger is on the third day, which is tomorrow. So I'm excited to see what tomorrow is going to bring. I shall not make the mistake as I did last year when I was doing my water fast. That time was 10 days. I went out on the third day and I kid you not, I strolled into a street festival and there was food everywhere. And you know what? I'm not lying when I say to you that I had hallucinations of floating burgers and sausages. I could tell you where every burger was and every type of burger, every type of sausage in every corner. And the food was just calling me. Now, that was just psychological. I think that was psychological hunger when I went out, but maybe mixed with a little physical hunger as well. But it's definitely psychological when you're having hallucinations and also dreaming of food. I was dreaming of food. I tell you, the food was calling me. I wanted everything. And this was on the third day. And I really wouldn't suggest that you go out or even go online, even looking at pictures of food kind of gives you an urge, and it makes it a little bit difficult. Now, as I said, there are many health benefits. One of them is the ketones. The ketones kind of gives you a sense of euphoria, a sense of well-being, and that tends to offset the psychological hunger. But that doesn't really kick in until after the third day. So I just have to survive tomorrow with no food, only water. And then after that, hopefully, I will not have these feelings anymore, right? I can remember also from last year, that is the reason why, although I planned to do this for 7 days, I ended up doing it for 10, because you know what? It felt so good. Honestly, after the third day, these ketones feel, I don't know, it's just like you're just walking on sunshine. You're feeling no pain. You're feeling good. You're feeling energetic. Your mind is clear. You think differently. Even your creativity is affected. And, all of that is ketones produced specifically for our brain, right? And the brain is just running on overdrive. I kid you not. If you make it to the third day, it's a wonderful experience. It's also an evolution that humans have had because, again, another video that I watched, I did a lot of research, from reputable people, also people who helped me last year. They said that our closest relatives, the chimpanzees, they cannot change somehow internally the source of energy that their brain needs. They have to always use glucose. And that is why, they stuck to the tropical regions where there are always, fruits on the trees. But us as human beings, we have adapted to find another source of energy for the brain, which is quite significant. And this is something that has helped us during our hunter-gatherer periods, so to speak. We didn't have 3 meals a day. And this ability is actually an evolution, and I'm taking advantage of that right now. And you know what? It feels really good. So then, there we have it. Ian Antonio Patterson again coming to you for this extra special episode, a series actually, of Life is Feeling Counting the Ways. You can head on over to the show notes page and you can, leave your comments if you want. You can see the links that I posted. All of these people who have helped me to, plan this fasting thing. You can see photos and everything else. All these little extras that you won't find in your normal podcast player. If you want to listen to the show in a podcast player alone and, maybe you just like Spotify, you can use lifeisfeeling.de. That will take you directly to Spotify. I've been getting a lot of resonance on YouTube recently, so maybe you're listening to the episode in YouTube. That is perfectly fine. But if you want all the little extras, as I said, the photos and the links, just pop over to the show notes page where I'll post all these links for you. All right, so as I always say, with a small win is always a good way to begin. I'm looking forward to the following days, 20 days to be exact, 20 days in all, and I am looking forward to hearing from you. Bye for now. Well then, I don't know if you can hear the music in the background, but today is actually the 4th day of my fast, and I'm very happy because I don't feel any pain anymore. Well, actually, I never really had pain before, but the strong urge to eat is kind of gone. The physical discomfort of not having eaten is all gone, and I'm happy to say
that now I'm sitting or standing actually a little off out of the crowd at the what is it's called in German, the Jüdischen Museum, which is the Jewish museum in Berlin, and they are having a little event called Jazz Breakfast, and I think it's something that happens once or twice a year, and I'm very happy to be here with actually one of my students. So, well, we're not talking any English today. Today is all about just chilling and listening to the jazz, which turned out to be Turkish jazz and more of the East European, very East, also, Turkish music. And I would say, well, there's also a lot of some Jewish pieces as well. The name of the band I'll find out and also include later. But I just wanted to do this little piece so you had a taste of what the day is like. The day is wonderful. My senses are, I don't know how to explain it, but it seems as if the trees are singing. I told you that there's a kind of a Zustand or a condition. I don't know if I'd call it a condition, but a state of mind, a state of being that's totally euphoric when you're doing a water fast, and that tends to start at the, I don't know, end of the third day or the beginning of the fourth. Today is the fourth, and it's feeling wonderful. It seems as if the trees are singing and the music in the background is absolutely beautiful. Hi, it's iAntonio.media again, coming to you for another little update, so to speak, of my little fasting journey that I promised to do for you. Now, just a quick reminder, what is the overall story? As most of you know, my goal is to get to 20 days of not eating anything at all. Now, this is all about the things that motivate me and perhaps the things that will also motivate others, to try it for themselves. Again, this is all about feelings. So, for the most part, I'm trying to document how I feel because, that's what it boils down to at the end of the day. I can present you with all sorts of facts, but, if it doesn't feel good, then, maybe you will never try it for yourself. No, I'm just going to run through some of the things, though, that cause me to feel good about fasting. These things include, for example, the prolonged health benefits of fasting, which far outweigh the temporary weight loss, which is kind of like a bonus. And I have to reiterate that from time to time, that is not really about losing weight. It's about many other things. And, I'm just going to run through these things a little bit because, as I said, these facts make me feel very motivated to continue with this, right? So first of all, your body goes into a kind of a survival mode. It's a stressed existence, when you're fasting and, your adrenaline goes up a little bit. And it's something that has helped us over the past, in prehistoric times even, or maybe not so long ago, to survive times of not having food. So we have evolved to also have mechanisms within our bodies that protect us during these phases. Now, it's also reputed that you actually regrow brain cells and, not all parts of the brain, but, like the hippocampus and parts of the brain that will improve memory. Well, I don't know much about the brain, but as far as I know, the hippocampus and the brain stem are definitely places that are improved by fasting. Now, again, I have no proof of this. I'm not a doctor or anything like that. But what I can tell you, just for this series in terms of how I feel very clear-headed. There is no stress really, even though my body is under stress. I don't really feel any psychological stresses. I feel flow. That means I concentrate much better on my job. And, as we have it, I actually started a new job last week
that requires a lot of concentration, a lot of new material. And, that was about, I don't know, I started this job, I think about on my fourth day of fasting or third, I'm not quite sure. And it went really well. It is going really well, so my flow and concentration are top. I get better sleep. I need less sleep, but I do sleep deeper and better. I have more intense dreams. Yes, I'll admit as well, sometimes about food, but the quality of my sleep has increased. Now, it's also said that, through the mitochondria, which are like the energy factories of the cell, you have increased energy. I think that has to do with the fact that your body is now running on ketones. And the compelling idea about that is that ketones are a form of fat that the body has to produce for itself, with the lack of glucose and, sugars and carbohydrates. And the great thing about that is that, first of all, you feel more energetic. And, for example, cancer cells cannot run on ketones. Cancer cells need sugar. And, just the fact that one of the first rules of prolonged fasting is eliminating sugar and carbohydrates from the diet, that says a lot about what you're doing for your cells. And, cells becoming cancerous is a process. It just doesn't just happen like that. It's a process of the body falsely replicating cells. Again, I'm not a doctor or biologist or anything like that, but as far as I know, it's all about cells that are replicated in a wrong way, and there are errors there, and they eventually develop into cancer cells. Now, when you start producing ketones and your cells have to work on that, you also go through a process which is called autophagy, and this process helps to recycle old and damaged protein and old and damaged cells, which is in itself the epitome of anti-aging. But all these things together, as I was saying, increased energy from ketones and the autophagy process, which seeks to recycle old and damaged protein, and the fact that cancer cells need sugar to survive. All of these things come together and make me feel really motivated. It's almost as if I could feel that kind of self-healing happening. Also because, my energy is up and, I'm following the principles. Now, there's also a surge of growth hormone, and I feel particularly motivated by that because I'm going to the gym. I've been going to the gym for the past 3 months again, regularly, and I am interested in my muscle gains. So this surge in growth hormone will help me with that. Now, the other thing that, kind of motivates me a lot is that the body has, let's say prolonged fasting is said to enhance stem cell production. Stem cells are like the basis cells in the body that can be used to create any kind of cell. And, it's just nice to know that it was enhanced doesn't necessarily mean a solid boost as what happens with the human growth hormone, but enhanced, I think, is a careful way of expressing that the production of stem cells is kind of supported, and at the end of the day, you'll probably have more and not less. Now, another thing that makes me feel really, really, really motivated is the decreased inflammation that comes as a result of prolonged fasting. Now, I'm not going to say most, but many illnesses, any illness that you see ending with the suffix itis is caused by inflammation, right? And also, autoimmune illnesses are somehow reduced by prolonged fasting. Again, I don't have proof of it, but this comes from the many sources that I've checked before I did this. Since last year, I've been researching this because, as I said, I've done it before, and this is my second time. Right? So, it's just nice to know that anything that is moving towards inflammation within the body is reduced, right? And as I said, autoimmune illnesses, and I think light versions of that are, little things like allergies, and there's some other autoimmune illnesses that I'm sure all of you know about. If you do prolonged fasting, that will only help. There's also, an increase, so to speak, of antioxidants within the body. And, as we all know, antioxidants help are, very healthy. I don't exactly know the exact way in which they protect the body, but as far as I know, they're very healthy. And the natural production of antioxidants within the body is triggered by prolonged fasting, right? So all of these things are the things that motivate me, and, I just want to also say that I am very happy that, I will lose absolutely no muscle mass, contrary to popular belief. That's part of the fear that people have of intermittent fasting. You don't lose any muscle mass. If you do sports during your prolonged fasting, which I'm not doing, I'm just walking every day. Maybe I walk about, 3 kilometers or so. That is light sports. And if you don't do heavy sports, you won't lose any, right? If you do sports, then you might lose up to 4% of muscle mass and no more. I've been going to the gym quite a lot over the past 3 months, and this is very motivating to know that I'll still have it when I get back into training, right? I'll also be much less bothered by adopting new, even more healthy eating habits afterwards. And also, I'm very motivated by the fact that I can eat whatever the hell I want to eat, not all the time, but every day if I want to, just within a specific time window. Now, some of the challenges that come with I keep saying intermittent fasting because, I do that sometimes. Well, most of the time, actually, that's quite sustainable. You can do that all year round. But some of the barriers to overcome with prolonged fasting include the skepticism or cynicism of the people around you. Right? I get that all the time. And, I can sometimes quite easily see through it that, it's not really about me or what I'm doing. It's sometimes about them. They are convinced that they themselves could never do it. So, they have to kind of like block it, and find all reasons to say that it doesn't work and all of that. One idea that many people kind of push is that there's going to be a kind of a popular word was yo-yo effect, which is like gaining all the weight afterwards. Well, as I said again, I'm not doing this for weight loss. I've done it before, and I know that about half of the weight lost during the fast will come back naturally. That is perfectly fine. I'm okay with that. I'm doing it for all the health benefits that I mentioned before, right? And it's only natural that about half of the weight lost will come back because, most of it is water, right? Now, another thing that you have to overcome, apart from, the skepticism and cynicism based on the fears of the other people around you, is that the physical hunger will go away, especially after 3 days. After the first 3 days, you don't feel any physical hunger anymore, but there is a psychological hunger that comes in waves. And sometimes when you go out, you'll pass restaurants, you'll smell the food, you'll have, I always say I had hallucinations, food talking to me, but did have moments where, I felt really driven to go into a restaurant. I tried to make reasons for myself to go in and check out their menu and so on. And, that is, it comes in waves, and sometimes you have to be, strong and resilient, And what I've been doing is making note of these restaurants as I walk past them in Google Maps. So, I know where to go after my fast is over. Another thing that's a little bit challenging is the social events or encounters that you have sometimes. It's a little bit off-putting not to be able to eat when you're meeting with friends, for example. You can drink, of course, you can drink your water and you can talk, and maybe some of them are curious about what it is you're doing, but you can't eat with them, and that's a little bit hard. Now, here I am talking to you about how I feel, that I'm feeling fantastic, energetic, and so on. But I'm going to admit to you there are some risks associated with prolonged fasting. I have managed to find a way that works for me and is based on a lot of research. And I've looked all around, and I would recommend that you do your own research. Don't just take my words for it. Now, if you're interested in getting more detailed information, more detailed account of what exactly worked for me in terms of the preparation for the fast, for example, how I ate before, maybe a week or so before I started, what I ate or what I consumed during the fast, and, a lot more about the science behind it, and most importantly, breaking the fast. That is a very important part of it that you cannot take lightly. If you allow yourself to dive back into, pigging out on all the things you love, you might die. So, if you're interested in finding out, as I said, more detail into how I do it, before, during, and after, you can sign up, as I've invited you to do before, for the private listeners group that you will find on the show page if you follow fast.lifeisfeeling.com. All right, now that was most of it, and you have to, I can't reiterate, you have to follow the principles closely, right? It is achievable, it is doable, and as I sit here, I'm doing this podcast and I don't know if I'm gonna edit anything, maybe I cut out some spots where I kind of whether spoke too fast or spoke out of turn, so to speak. But, I'm doing this with, of course, the benefit of the experience I've had as a podcaster. And, I'm, just doing it quite easily. My concentration is there. I structured this little story for you, and I hope at least it made some sense. Strong, energetic, healthy body, and so on. But you have to be mindful of the fact, again, that you have to follow the principles closely. All right, so that was it for this little update. And what is today? Today is actually, is it day 12? I'm not quite sure. Let's see. It's actually day 11. It's day 11 of my fast. That means I'm on the other side now, heading towards day 20. Tomorrow's a work day, and I'm sure I'm going to handle it really well because, when I'm at work, it's kind of, you're not thinking so much about food. All right, so that was it for this little update. I hope you learned something, hope you felt motivated, and I hope you felt curious because you know what? I want you to sign up for the private listeners group. I will give you so much more there. Also in a document form that you can have for yourself. As soon as you, maybe I do videos. I like to do what I call show notes exclusives. I will invite you to have a look at those if you sign up. And, I just want to get in contact with my people. I want to know who you are. And that's the reason why we do this, again, as an independent podcaster, right? So please, don't be shy. You can send in your comments. You can sign up for the group. It won't be long, I think, this series, but that way I'll have a better idea of who I'm talking to and what to put out, because I don't really want to do this for everyone, right? So again, iAntonio.media, looking forward to hearing from you, and bye for now. Today is day 10 of my 20-day water fast, and I am feeling absolutely fantastic.
And not only because I'm down to 79.9 kilograms from 87. I think for some strange reason, yesterday, the 25th of August, was my most unsuccessful weight loss day. But you know what? I think I know why. Then again, the weight loss thing is by far not the only reason why I'm doing it. The benefits are numerous, and I'll be documenting and publishing, little insights into how I felt during this fasting journey right here on this show at Life is Feeling Counting the Ways. So if you're interested, if you feel a little nosy about how I felt over this entire journey, just feel free to subscribe to the show and you can get that little insight that you want. Now, a few weeks ago, I was surprised to realize that as a man of 1.8 meters and 87 kilograms, I was actually slightly overweight. And I said to myself that it was time to do something about it again. And at the same time, do something for the environment. More on that later. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. There is a wild and wicked little club in Big Bad Berlin where bodies are on show. And I was thinking of visiting it with a friend of mine. But then my inner diva decided that it would be unkind of me to subject my fellow patrons to my jelly belly, thunder thighs, and relatively rocket batty. Keyword, my. So I decided to do what I can and enjoy the benefits while I'm at it. 20 days no food. That's right. But don't worry about it, I've done it before, and I don't think I will die from it or feel any pain whatsoever. On the contrary, there is a euphoric state of mind associated with fasting that was the rather surprising side effect that caused me to go for 10 days the last time I did it, instead of a planned 3. And if you're feeling a little nosy, I've started to document most of my fasting journey over the past few days. And if you're interested in finding out how it felt to do a fast, how difficult it is, what the challenges are, just head on over to fast.lifeisfeeling.com or just subscribe to the show Life is Feeling, Counting the Ways, from anywhere. And if you are interested in a more detailed account of some of the science behind how I did what I did or what I'm doing and some of the small mistakes I've made along the way, just sign up for the private listeners group at, you guessed it, fast.lifeisfeeling.com. Life is Feeling Counting the Ways is a self-sponsored independent podcast brought to you in association with iAntonio.media. The show is essentially an art project where we explore different career roles and converse with ideas. It's not exactly made for children and may at times feature somewhat sensitive content based on a wide repertoire of unique lived experience of people. Listener discretion is strongly advised. The show, as usual, explicitly promises no answer to anything whatsoever, and as the name suggests, explores feelings. Everyone here speaks for themselves. Nothing is cast in stone. And we all are, in true human fashion, expressly allowed to change our minds. Life is Feeling Counting the Ways does not offer advice based on the professional opinion of licensed lawyers, psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, teachers, moral authorities, or the like. I am myself a trainer, but more likely than not, and especially within this context, I am not your trainer. When in doubt, consult a professional. For more information, questions, or contributions, feel free to visit lifeisfeeling.com and use the contact form.